This video is for educational and documentary purposes. All information is based on public records and credible news sources. No accusations are made. From inside the factory to global consequences, this is the true story of the baby formula disaster that broke a nation. Today, we're going to uncover how the closure of just one US baby formula factory sparked a nationwide crisis, leaving shelves empty, families desperate, and a fragile system exposed. If you're interested in what really happens inside the world's most critical factories, subscribe now and follow us into the production lines that power and sometimes fail our lives. A crisis no one expected. Maria, a mother of two in Houston, pulled into her fourth grocery store. In Facebook parent groups and on Twitter, the same heartbreaking photos surfaced: rows of empty shelves where formula used to be, and frantic pleas for help from parents who were just days or even hours away from running out. It wasn't just a supply issue, it was a ticking clock. Still no baby formula. Her worry turned into panic. Across the US, the same scene repeated: empty shelves, crying babies, and parents scrambling for help. In 2022, the US experienced one of the most unexpected supply chain breakdowns in modern history. At the center of it all, a single factory, a shutdown that would leave millions without access to one of the most vital products in any household: infant formula. Part 1. The shutdown that broke the chain. In February 2022, Abbott Nutrition issued a massive recall of powdered formula after several infants fell ill, and one died from bacterial infections. The FDA investigated the company's plant in Sturgis, Michigan, the largest baby formula factory in the US. Inside, inspectors found Chronobacter bacteria near production lines, unsanitary conditions, and gaps in quality records. Whistleblowers described a culture of silence inside the facility, workers allegedly afraid to speak up, and red flags ignored in pursuit of production targets. The FDA's final report cited not just contamination risks, but also systemic lapses in employee training and failure to investigate previous complaints thoroughly. The facility was immediately shut down. That decision, though necessary for safety, removed roughly 40% of the national formula supply from circulation, and the shelves emptied almost overnight. Retailers scrambled to respond. Some enforced purchasing limits. Others had no stock to limit at all. For rural communities, where options were already few, the impact was even more severe. Part 2. A fragile system built to break. The crisis didn't happen just because of one factory. It happened because the entire system was designed with no flexibility. In the US, 4 companies control about 90% of the formula market. Abbott holds a dominant share, largely through exclusive contracts with WIC, the Federal Nutrition Program for low-income families. In many states, Abbott was the sole provider for hundreds of thousands of infants. The WIC contracts, while intended to support low-income families, also unintentionally reinforced monopolies. Once a company secured a state contract, it gained market control not just among WIC recipients, but all shoppers, due to better shelf placement and promotional pricing. Abbott's dominance wasn't just about production, it was also about access. So when their factory went dark, the market had nowhere to turn. Importing formulas from abroad wasn't easy either. FDA labeling and packaging restrictions blocked even premium European and Canadian products. Even attempts to source formula through alternative suppliers proved difficult. Smaller companies lacked the logistics to scale up, and navigating FDA's complex rules around infant formula was a legal and regulatory maze. Despite there being plenty of formula elsewhere in the world, America couldn't access it. Part 3. Desperation on the ground. With no quick solution, desperation set in. Parents drove hours searching for a single can. Others paid inflated prices on secondary markets. Facebook groups turned into supply chains, with strangers shipping formulas across states. Mothers overnight became logistics coordinators, mapping out stores, coordinating drop-offs, and sharing tips on lesser-known brands that could substitute in a pinch. Some resorted to unsafe practices, diluting formula to stretch it or turning to homemade recipes despite health warnings. Pediatricians across the country issued urgent advisories. Do not try to make your own formula. Hospitals felt the pressure too. Medical-grade formulas for premature babies and allergy-sensitive infants became scarce. In some neonatal intensive care units, NICU, doctors were down to their final days of supply. One mom in Florida began rationing feeds to stretch her last tin. A father in Nevada made a 4-hour trip to buy one container. Non-profits and food banks saw a surge in requests, but even they faced shortages. And in households where income was already stretched thin, the rising cost of formula only worsened the burden. This was no longer a supply issue. It was a national emergency, and for some families, a nightmare. What happens when one small disruption brings a nation to its knees? Stay with us as we explore the breakdown from the inside. Part 4. Inside the plant. What went wrong? The FDA's inspection revealed troubling conditions at the Sturgis facility. Standing water, unclean surfaces, and incomplete microbiological testing records. But the real shock came from a whistleblower letter submitted to the FDA months before the crisis. It alleged falsified records, ignored contamination concerns, and pressure on employees to hide safety issues. Yet the letter wasn't reviewed until after the factory had already been shut down. The employee behind the letter, who had worked at the Sturgis plant for years, cited dozens of internal failures. They claimed crucial safety audits were skipped or altered, and that some batches flagged during internal quality checks were quietly reprocessed instead of discarded, all in an effort to avoid production delays. Abbott denied any link between their formula and the illnesses, but acknowledged the problems. The plant restarted production in June, only to shut down again weeks later due to flooding. A restart, followed by more delay. Part 5. A global wake-up call. The US isn't the only country that has faced catastrophic formula failures. In the year 2008, in China, over 300,000 babies were sickened by formula tainted with melamine, a chemical added to fake protein levels. Public outrage was immediate. Trust in domestic brands collapsed. And in 2017, in France, dairy giant Lactalis recalled 12 million cans of formula after a salmonella outbreak traced back to one of its facilities. Investigations revealed that the contamination had existed for years before discovery. These disasters weren't just about bacteria or chemicals, they were about trust. Once broken, that trust doesn't recover easily. In China, it led to an entire generation of parents relying on imported brands, while in France, it led to widespread lawsuits and years of litigation. In each case, it was the children who paid the highest price. And during the 2022 US crisis, Canada had a surplus of formula, but FDA import restrictions blocked access. A solution was across the border, but red tape kept it out. From Asia to Europe to North America, these failures reveal a global pattern: centralized production, slow responses, and minimal contingency planning. Part 6. The emergency response. As public pressure mounted, the US government launched Operation Fly Formula. Military aircraft transported formula from Europe to help refill shelves. The FDA relaxed import regulations to allow emergency shipments from brands like Kendamil and Holler. Parents cautiously welcomed brands like Kendamil and Bubs Australia, praising their organic ingredients and clean production. But these brands had to move mountains, redesign packaging, translate labels, and get rapid FDA approval, all under intense scrutiny. For once, bureaucracy bent under pressure, but only temporarily. Congress launched hearings. Abbott's CEO issued a public apology. FDA officials admitted they were too slow to act on early warnings. But these moves were reactive. Experts noted that if these brands were safe in an emergency, why weren't they safe before it? The real question was why there weren't preventive systems in place to begin with. Why did it take a disaster for policy to change? Part 7. Could this happen again? Eventually, the formula returned to stores. Production restarted, shelves were restocked. But for many families, the trauma remains. Experts warn that little has changed structurally. The Government Accountability Office issued a stark report in 2023 urging the creation of a national baby formula reserve. But so far, progress has been limited. Many families still rely on the same few brands, and the system remains one crisis away from collapse. The market is still dominated by a few players. Imports remain tightly regulated, and there's still no national stockpile or emergency manufacturing reserve. What happened in 2022 wasn't a one-off fluke. It was a sign of how one failure, whether from contamination, fire, cyber attack, or flooding, could disrupt an entire system. And unless changes are made now, it could happen again. What do you think? Should baby formula be treated like electricity or water as a protected national resource? Let us know in the comments below. And for more stories about what happens behind the world's most important production lines, subscribe to Process Flow.